Hello students, welcome to the lecture on International HR Planning, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Describe human resource planning, explain human resource forecasting, understand recruitment and selection, discuss performance management and appraisal. Introduction. Let's start with the concept of international HR planning. The success of a business is directly linked to the performance of those who work for that business. Planning for HR needs will help to ensure that the employees have the skills and competencies which a business needs to succeed. An HR plan works hand in hand with the business plan to determine the resources needed to achieve the business goals. It will better prepare the management for staff turnover, recruitment and strategic hiring. Objectives of human resource planning. Human resource HR planning or manpower planning is a process by which the organization ensures that it has the right kind of people at the right time, at right place, and they are working effectively and efficiently and help the organization achieving the overall objective. It is a continuous process of developing and determining objectives, policies that will procure, develop and utilize human resources to achieve the goal of the organization. To ensure proper utilization of human resources, to check the development of the employees for the achievement of the organization goal, to ensure proper human resource policies, to provide proper control measures whenever required. Human resource planning, recruitment and selection. Human resource planning deals with the systematic and continuing process of analyzing a firm's human resource needs under mutating conditions and developing workforce policies suitable to the longer-term effectiveness of the organization. Planning involves the forecasting of human resource needs in organization and designing appropriate actions such as recruitment, training and career development based on identified needs. It is also affected by public policies, changes in technology and availability of manpower. It involves a complex task of forecasting and planning for the right numbers and the right kinds of personnel at the right places and at the right time to perform activities that will benefit the organization in accomplishing its objectives and in helping its members to satisfy their needs. The first step in staffing involves human resource planning HRP, which is understood as a process of forecasting an international organization, future demand for and supply of the right type of people in the right number. Recruitment is defined as searching for and obtaining job candidates in sufficient numbers and qualify so that the organization can select the most appropriate people to fill its job's need. Selection is a process of gathering information for the purpose of evaluating and deciding who should be employed in a particular job. Staffing orientation include ethnocentric, polycentric, regiocentric and geocentric approaches, each having its own strengths and weaknesses. Human resource forecasting. The information gathered from external environmental scanning and assessment of internal strengths and weaknesses is used to predict or forecast HR supply and demand in light of organizational objectives and strategies. Forecasting uses information from the past and present to identify expected future conditions. Chances in the condition on which the projections are based might even completely invalidate them, which is a chance forecasters take. Approaches to forecasting human resources range from a manager's best guess to a rigorous and complex computer simulation. The facts must be evaluated and weighed by knowledgeable individuals such as managers and HR experts who use the mathematical models as a tool rather than relying on them blindly. Forecasting the need for human resources demand. The main emphasis in HR forecasting to date has been on forecasting organizational need for human resources or HR demand. Forecast of demand may be either judgmental or mathematical. The demand for employees can be calculated on an organizational white basis and or calculated based on the needs of individual units in the organization. The openings or demands are created when employees leave a position because of promotions, transfer and terminations. The analysis always begins with the top position in the organization because from those there can be no promotion to a higher level. Based on this analysis, decision rules or fill rates are developed for each job or level. Forecasting availability of human resources supply. Once the need for human resources has been forecasted, then their availability must be identified. Forecasting the availability of human resources considers both external and internal supplies. External supply. The external supply of potential employees available to the organization needs to be estimated. Here are some of the factors that may be considered. Net migration into and out of the area, individuals entering and leaving the workplace, individuals graduating from schools and colleges, changing workforce composition and patterns, economic forecasts for the next few years, technological developments and shifts, actions of competing employers, government regulation and pressures, factors affecting person entering and leaving the workforce. Internal supply. Estimating internal supply considers that employees move from their current jobs into other through promotions, lateral moves, and terminations. Internally, succession analysis is one method used to forecast the supply of people for certain position. The HR forecasting is the heart of the HR planning process by ascertaining the net requirements for staff by determining the levels of demand for and supply of human resources now and in the future. Forecasting activity categories. Transaction-based forecasting. It focuses on tracking internal change instituted by the organizational managers. Event-based forecasting. Concerned with changes in the external environment. Process-based forecasting. Not focused on a specific internal organizational event but on the flow or sequencing of several work activities. All three of these categories are important to have a comprehensive method for ascertaining HR requirements. Benefits of HR forecasting. Reduces HR costs, increases organizational flexibility, ensures a clear linkage to the macro business forecasting process, ensures that organizational requirements takes procedures over issues of resource constraint and scarcity. Determining net HR requirements. Demand forecast should match supply forecast. Disequilibrium in it would require corrective action. Determining net HR requirement. Determining net HR requirement reconciliation of demand and supply. Demand forecast should match supply forecast. Disequilibrium in it requires corrective actions. Developing action plans. Developing action plans if supply demand, then outsourcing the work, temporary hires and so on. If supply demand, then layoffs, work sharing, outplacement and so on. Implementing. Monitoring and controlling the plan. Implementing, monitoring and controlling the plan. Implementation of selected plans, monitoring of such implementation, controlling if deviation. Problem areas in HRP. Problem areas in HRP. Traditional resistant inadequate information system, uncertainties, lack of coordination, limited role. Responsibility of HRP. Responsibility of HRP assess, counsel, pressurizes for planning, collection and summarizing data, monitor and measure performance to provide for necessary research. Recruitment realistic job previews. Human resource HR managers recruit by locating potential employees and inviting them to apply for the business open position. The HR managers informs the applicants of the requirements of the position and any organizational opportunities. When a position becomes available, HR managers might recruit from within the existing workforce or branch out seeking new employees to increase the staff size. An existing executive or supervisor leaves a higher position open, which often causes a chain of promotions from within the company, leaving a lower position open for external recruitment. Here are the common methods that are covered under recruitment through web portal, online and traditional job posting methods, social networking techniques, job fairs, employee referrals, advertising in newspapers, magazines, and professional publication, recruitment agencies generally used for executive searches. Realistic job preview. Management can increase recruitment effectiveness by subscribing to the Realistic Job Preview (RJP) system. Under RJP, HR managers tell applicants the absolute truth about both positive and negative job aspects. This system leads to higher job satisfaction and lower turnover because the employees understand the undesirable aspect of the job before they begin work. External recruitment. The HR managers have a variety of options open to them for aid in drawing new talent to their organization. The number of people available for employment shifts with economic trends. Periods of high unemployment makes it easier to find qualified employees, and HR managers need more aggressive recruitment during times of low unemployment occur tight labor markets. Advertising. Many organizations use media advertisement to attract applicants. Common media types include newspapers, industry magazines, and websites. During tight labor markets, HR managers may also place ads in conventional media such as billboards, radio and television spots, and direct email. International labor market sources. International labor markets refer to the institutional rules and procedures such as recruitment, training, and the price of labor, which govern the employment relationship, in contrast to the external labor market where such decisions are controlled directly by economic variables. The internal labor market represents, as Osterman states, a structured pattern of interaction or behavior that persists over time and which is subject to changes. Althusser and Kahlenberg stressed the importance of a framework that differentiates internal labor market types. In their research, they identified the existence of several types of internal labor markets which they believe are unlikely to have the same origins and consequences. Althusser and Kahlenberg importantly distinguish between two types of internal labor markets: a firm internal labor market (FILM) and an occupational internal labor market (OILM). It is important to note, however, that occupational internal labor markets exist for incumbents of one or more associated occupations and are not necessarily confined to a single employer recruitment policy and practice. The BJW or ABN AMRO's recruitment policy advocates internal recruitment before sourcing externally. Non-executive and junior executive vacancies are advertised internally either by notice boards, newsletter, or informal networks. For internal candidates, the selection process may involve a couple of interviews. External applicants may undergo 3 or more interview rounds depending on the seniority of the position. A range of psychological tests is an important part of the selection process, and candidates, particularly external, go through this process before any final decisions are made. The basic of recruitment. The first defining structural feature of internal labor markets and selection criteria interviews reveal management perception of the basic of recruitment to be that about 70% of equity recruits typically have a few years experience working for other organizations in the industry. External recruitment occurs at higher levels if no suitable candidate can be found internally, and also when new blood needs to be injected into the division. This occurs in about 30% of cases. There is a preference for recruiting internally at junior levels as a means of ensuring the future commitment of employees. Parent country nationals (PCNs). Parent country nationals (PCNs) are employees who are citizens of and are hired from the nation where an organization has its original and current headquarters, the parent country. The PCNs are distinct from host country national (HCNs), who are staff hired from the country where the international subsidiary is operating, the host country. Third country national (TCNs) are citizens of neither the parent nor the host country. The role and function of a PCN depends on the organization's approach to international human resource management and the needs of the overseas subsidiary where the PCN is assigned. The PCNs use different adaptation strategies to cope with their overseas assignments, and there are both advantages and disadvantages in using PCNs to staff international subsidiaries. The term parent country national usually is used only to identify an employee who is posted to an overseas country as an expatriate overseas assignment of more than 1 year, as a worker on a short-term assignment less than 1 year, or as a flexpatriate, several short-term overseas postings, sometimes referred to as commuter assignments. The role of PCNs in an international organization depends on the organization approach to international human resource management. The approaches include exportive or ethnocentric, integrative or regiocentric and geocentric, adaptive or polycentric. In the exportive or ethnocentric approach, PCN expatriates function in a control position, as this approach is characterized by a transfer of the parent company's human resource management system to the host country. Host country nationals, HCNs. It is believed that the organization gained competitive advantages by widely distributing knowledge and skills throughout their internal units and to all employees, rather than entrusting knowledge to only a relatively few leaders and subject matter experts, such as expatriates in the host country and other managers at the multinational corporation MNCs, regional and parent country headquarters. As a testimony to this trend, recent extensive empirical and case studies have found that at both subsidiary and headquarters levels, knowledge transfer is seen as the most important reason for expatriation, while direct expatriate control and immediate tasks fulfill. Cultural interpreter. Managing cross-cultural differences presents an ongoing challenge for effective MNC's knowledge management. To help cope with these challenges, the HCNL can serve as a cultural interpreter for clarifying communication, providing cultural guidance, and mediating conflict. On many occasions, the HCNL may interpret for pure and lower level HCN employees and expatriates any uncertain communication exchanges and events occurring within or outside the host country operation. A host country national HCN is an employee who is a citizen of a country in which an organization's branch or plant is located, but the organization is headquartered in another country. The present study proposes a significant role for host country national HCNs in the expatriate adjustment process. Third country nationals, TCNs. A TCN is an individual who is neither a citizen of the United States nor of the country Iraq to which assigned for duty. If employed, is eligible for return travel to the TCN's home country or country from which recruited at US government expense. Encumbers a direct hire, personal service agreement PSA, or personal service contracts PSC, FSN position covered under the local compensation plan, is recruited from outside the host country and relocated from the point of recruitment to the host country. The term third country is used in the treaties where it means a country that is not a member of the Union. Working condition. Article 31 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, headed Fair and Just Working Conditions, provides that every worker has a right to working conditions that respect his or her health, safety and dignity. This applies to third country nationals as well as nationals of the EU member states. Article 15(3) of the Charter establishes a principle of equal treatment as regards working condition between non-EU nationals and EU citizens, a principle not evident in the treaties. Article 15(3) enacts at European level the non-discrimination principle at work on the basis of nationality. The right is to equivalent working condition. This is different from identical or equal. Directive 2043 EC implementing the principle of equal treatment between persons irrespective of racial or ethnic origin, and Directive 2078 establishing a general framework for equal treatment in employment and occupation protect all union citizens and third country nationals and both cover employment and working conditions including dismissals and pay. Article 3(1)(c) in both directives. Social Security provision. Council Regulation 859/2003 of 14 May 2003 extended the free movement of workers and Social Security provision of Regulation 1408/71 and Regulation 574/72 to nationals of third countries who are not already covered by those provisions solely on the grounds of their nationality. Regulation 859/2003 aimed at granting rights as similar as possible to those enjoyed by union citizens to third country nationals legally resident in the community who satisfy the other condition provided for in Regulation 1408/71. The Commission's Social Policy Agenda 2000-2005 declare it is important to approximate national legislation on the conditions for admission and residence of third country nationals on the basis of a shared assessment of the demographic changes, the situation of the labor market as well as the situation in countries of origin. Staffing policies. Purpose: to ensure that competent candidates are selected to fill new and vacant positions and to give internal candidates priority. Scope: this policy applies to all regular non-unionized administrative and support staff regardless of the source of funds with the exception of university executives. Selection policy: position will be awarded to the most competent internal candidates and only if no internal candidates meet the minimum requirements of the position as posted will external candidates be considered. Position postings: all vacant and newly created positions shall be posted for 8 working days from the date indicated on the posting notice. Employees being transferred or promoted within a department and or staff who have been laid off, whether they have employment security or not, may be offered a position without that position being posted. Positions are not considered vacant for reasons of maternity leave, sick leave, vacation or other authorized absences. Positions available are posted on the Human Resources website and on the bulletin board located in the Department of Human Resources. Internal candidates. Staff members who wish to be considered for a new or vacant position must apply by submitting an internal application form and curriculum vitae to the office indicated on the posting notice. Staff members are eligible to apply for new and vacant position without regard to the length of their employment with the university. All internal candidates who meet the minimum requirements of the position as posted must be granted an interview. All internal candidates must be notified in writing of the selection decision and the reason they were not offered the position. If an external candidate is selected, this must be specifically noted in the selection decision notice. Trial or probationary period. Staff members who are transferred or promoted will have a trial period of fixed duration in the new position. Unless otherwise specified, this trial period will be 30 working days, but in no circumstances should exceed 90 working days. The position from which the staff member has been promoted or transferred will not be filled permanently until the trial period has been completed. If a staff member who is transferred or promoted to a new position is still on his or her probationary period with the university, a new probationary period for that position will commence. External candidates. If an external candidate is proposed, all documentation relating to the recruitment process, including internal application forms, must be forwarded by the recruiting department to the Department of Human Resources Staffing. An offer of employment may be made only after approval to appoint an external candidate has been received from the Department of Human Resources Staffing. Dispute. The application of this policy will be disputable when an employee who has successfully completed his or her probationary period believes he or she met the requirement of the position and an external candidate was selected. Managerial and research appointments. In the case of appointment to role profiles, level 4 and above, and of all appointments to research grants and research contracts, all provisions of this staffing policy apply except that external candidates may be appointed even where there are internal candidates who meet the minimum requirements. Accordingly, in these cases, it will not be necessary for the recruiting department to provide justification for the appointment of an external candidate. Current policies and practices. In order to maintain a competitive edge and consistency reduce staffing issues, many companies have turned to alternative methods of staffing. As companies continue to change with the times, so do their staffing needs. Therefore, the traditional hiring of a full-time employee is not the only option. Ethnocentric approach. Companies can apply one of the three different approaches to managing and staffing their subsidiaries. Ethnocentric. The home country practice prevails with this approach. Headquarters from the home country makes key decision employees from the home country hold important jobs, and the subsidiaries follow the home country resource management practice. Polycentric. Each subsidiary manages on a local basis. A local employee heads a subsidiary because headquarters managers are not considered to have adequate local knowledge. Subsidiaries usually develop human resource management practices locally. Geocentric or global. The company that applies the global integrated business strategy manages and staffs employees on a global basis. Advantages. Lower labor costs demonstrate a trust in local citizenry. Increases acceptance of the company by the local community, maximizes the number of options available in the local environment, leads to recognition of the company as a legitimate participant in the local economy, effectively represent local consideration and constraints in the decision-making process, makes it difficult to balance local demands and global priorities, leads to postponement of difficult local decisions until they are unavoidable when they are more difficult, costly and painful than they would have been if implemented earlier, may make it difficult to recruit a qualified personnel, may reduce the amount of control exercised by headquarters. Disadvantages. Cultural similarity with parent company ensures transfer of business or management practices, permits closer control and coordination of international subsidiaries, gives employees a multinational orientation through experience at parent company, establishes a pool of internationally experienced executives, creates problems of adaptability to foreign environment and culture, increases the foreignness of the subsidiary, may involve high transfer and salary costs, may result in personal and family problems, leads to high failure rate, has a disincentive effect on local management morale and motivation, may be subject to local government restriction. Polycentric approach. Polycentrism is the belief that managers and employees in a foreign operation should be from the host country. Key positions in the foreign operation are filled with the host country nationals, HCNs. This saves money associated with recruiting, training and transferring expatriates from other countries in which the company also has operation. There are, however, possible negative aspects of a polycentric approach to hiring. One of the biggest problems relates to parent company control over the foreign subsidiary. A potential problem arises with coordination of activities, goals and objectives between parent and subsidiary. The parent company must be aware of potential problems and introduce control system to uncover these problems before they are allowed to get out of hand. Regiocentric approach. Regiocentric staffing policy involves hiring and promoting employees based on specific regional context where subsidiary is located. This approach is used when regional employees are needed for important positions. However, both employees from host countries and a third country are employed. The disadvantage of using this type of policy is that sometimes employees from home or host countries are not unselected. Instead, employees from a third are selected to subsidiary in which they may face cultural differences. Geocentric staffing approach is used when companies adopt a transnational orientation. It is best used when companies need the best personnel to work at subsidiary. Critical HR competencies. Competencies were seen as critical to success in the HR profession. Quite surprisingly, especially given the emphasis on ethical standards and emphasis on gaining respect in organization, personal credibility was cited with a relatively low frequency as compared to the other measures. Relationship between specific competencies and success. In the HR profession, it is relatively safe to assume that the more successful one is in one's position, the higher is one's compensation. The exception would be in a union environment where pay is typically based in part on longevity and not solely on performance. International migration and the impact on recruitment. The migration of highly skilled workers from less developed nation to industrialized nation is an inevitable part of the process of globalization and has positive and negative aspects. Those potentially advantageous often include the individuals who move and the source or home country that receive capital in the form of remittances from those who have moved. International talent management. Talent management is an initiative designed to source, attract, recruit, develop, advance and retain highly competent employees. It is also designed to target their development to leadership and management functions critical to the organization's continuing success. Business motivation for talent management. The business drivers for talent management include cost of recruitment versus attribution or retention, cost of retaining the critical people who drive success versus those who partially contribute, cost savings of creating a critical mass of highly competent employees for continuing and future success, cost savings of retaining a critical mass of highly competent employees for continuing and future success, cost saving of creating a diverse multicultural leadership and management to be successful in a diverse multicultural world, the results of changing workforce demographics, the feeder system and the critical selection and development of that potential talent. Fundamentally, the assumption of fact that a competent, high-performing workforce is the only sustainable advantage for future success. Local selection and assessment issues, selection criteria. As we all know, organizations compete fiercely in the war for talent. One reason why more organizations do not use rigorous assessment to select employees is because many executives and HR professionals have misconceptions about the value of using them. Summary. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. The HRM has developed from personal management, but instead of concentrating primarily on the hiring and firing of staff, it is the strategic and coherent approach to the overall management of an organization, most valued asset, the people working there who contribute to the objectives of the business. Its main aim is to develop personal policies that improve employee relations at work. This course will therefore begin with an examination of the history and nature of human resource management before embedding it in its international context. The HRM has a relatively recent history as a discrete subject area in the portfolio of management activities. Its lineage is traced to personal administration, but as you will have noted from Tayab, there is considerable debate about the extent to which HRM can be distinguished from personal management or if it can be distinguished at all. This chapter has briefly outlined how different perspectives on management are shaped. The academic literature appears to favor pluralist approaches to HRM, although HRM is most likely to be criticized from a unitarist or a radical perspective. In this chapter, the following has been covered: the emergence of HRM from personal management, the main tasks associated with HRM, the main perspective on management and their relationship to HRM, importance of context for management and HRM.